Hello, it's Shoaib Masood here, and welcome to APIs 101. The goal of this video series is to help any newbies or veterans in software development, application development, mobile developer, whatever, pick up API development and fully, thoroughly understand what APIs are and to be able to go in and start doing some API development. You may meet some points in your career where you're just given some endpoints or APIs to query, pull data, and do something with that data, whether it's manipulate it or just display it and more. So, yeah, there's a good list of APIs I've found that I've saved. So, in each video, we'll ideally pick up a new one, start fresh, and query it, and start to think about some use cases. So in this first one, as you can see here, I've got my folder here, free data, a lot of lists of APIs. So I've picked this one here by OpenMeteo.com, and this is the free weather API. If you come to this website here, it's got a sample here of how you query an API via a tool called curl. So you hit up the address, pass in some query parameters. Now, a query parameter, if you're new to APIs and endpoints, are things after the question mark. So we have latitude, longitude, hourly. I think that's it, just three here. So hourly has three values: temperature, relative humidity, and wind speed. Whereas longitude and latitude have obviously the number values. So if you scroll down, they talk about a bit what they are. So OpenMeteo collaborates with the National Weather Service, providing API or data through the consortium's format called Open Data. And they say it's highly performant, and the result you get the API in is JSON format, as the written JSON API. So JSON, for those again who are new to this, is stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and that just means a text file or text string based off JavaScript. So they've written you can query them for free without any API keys, because normally with an API, you may have some private data or some company that's selling that data. So they lock it down with a key, and until you pay, you won't be able to have that key. So they're saying their one just to test out with it's free for open source developers and non-commercial use. So we're free to test and play about with this. And also, as I've said there, you can embed APIs depending how you build your software or application into any type of app, really, mobile, desktop, or web. So if we scroll down here and click on weather, if I could just go read the docs, scroll down. So they've given you a tool, UI tool. You could put in some parameters and then click preview the chart, and that changes depending on the type of chart or what values you want to choose back, temperature units, etc. For us, we can do that. We can build one of these later on if we wanted to, but we just care about the API data itself in its raw format right now. So if you go down here, and I've got the API URL here, and you can open it in a new tab. If we do that, you can see the JSON format that I talked about. So this is it here. So given the latitude of 52.52, longitude of 31.41, and values for hourly are temperature 2M, surface pressure, they want to see that as well, wind speed 180 and soil moisture 0.1 centimeters. So some of these, forgive me, I don't know what they really stand for. There's 2 meters or 2 minutes, but I'm guessing it's time because it's set under the hourly parameter, so maybe 2 minutes. Let's see. I'm just trying to pick something out here. So this is 20th November. Is that 20th November? Yes, 20th November at 21 hours. So 9 o'clock at night. Then the next one is at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. They're moving up in in our blocks. So anyway, this is stuff, that's the easy stuff you could sort of find out later on, I guess. So yeah, you could also see the whole object, these are called objects, is in JSON. However, inside, if you see square brackets like this one here, these stand for arrays. So we have multiple arrays, 1, 2, 3, or maybe more, inside the JSON object to show more embedded or nested data. And JSON is almost like JavaScript objects. It's sort of a key. Here you go, key value pairs. This is the value here, key value. Okay, they're not exactly the same. However, they're similar. Arrays, on the other hand, is just indexes. So they use straight values at each point. That's just basic sort of JSON and arrays. I mean, most of you JavaScript or programmers will know this stuff already, and it's similar across the board. Yeah, so we could take that same URL, and it's the same on the photo today. We'll use a tool called Postman, which is this here, Postman. You could go postman.com and download it as well, postman.com, and click your operating system here, whichever one you're on, to download that. If you sign up and sign in, you could also use the web version, but just for the sake of this example, I'll use the desktop version. So you can see I've created a collection. You could go here, click new collection called weather APIs. And then inside that, once you've created it, it'll open it in the first tab on the left. Just click the plus here to create a new request. You type in your request in here. Could be, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And then when you hit save, you're able to save the request name. So I have one here ready to go. I'll paste that URL. If I hit send, there we go. We get back the exact same data in just a better format, because it's made prettified, as developers call this. It just means it's cleaned out, and it goes down the way instead of going too much across the way, just so it's more readable. So you see latitude, longitude, surface pressure, etc. And the hourly changes. So you've got the hours, and then below it you've got the values of, for instance, of the surface pressure, or of the wind speed, etc., etc. So that's the exact same object or data returned as this here. Okay, so a couple of things in Postman and about APIs. Your requests are all here. These are called request methods. The exact tool or language or programming we're doing here is called REST, which stands for that's a good one. Let's Google that one. REST API, also known as RESTful API. There you go. It stands for Representational State Transfer. It's an architecture style that's used to describe the uniform interface between physical separate components, often across the internet in a client-server architecture. So that's how sort of when you request data is returned. That's through an API. You're the client, you request it from the server. So that's client-server communication. And most of the time, like they've said as well, between two systems or components which want to communicate with each other. So yeah, these are all the REST methods. Now REST, the one I did not fully remember was the put and the patch. So REST put, okay, versus patch. So here we go. Main difference between put and patch in REST is put handles updates by replacing the entire entity. So in this scenario, if we put a put on this URL here, it will replace the whole entity, in our case the whole object, with whatever data we give it to change it to, whereas patch only updates the fields which you give. Okay, so patch will only update, for instance, latitude, longitude, and hourly, because those are the only ones we supplied. Okay, so that's the difference there. Most of the time, you'll only be using get, post, put, and delete. So put to replace a whole document, delete to obviously delete it, post is to add a document or resource, and get is to get or pull a resource or document. So that's the sort of basics there in REST communication. Authorization is when you have to give it a key, like I've mentioned before. In this case, we don't need to. Headers is the type of request you need to make it. So the server usually defines what type of request it accepts. This could be JSON data, it could be more secure data, it could be XYZ. So whatever is defined on the server, you need to know beforehand and pass it in. In our case, nothing is defined, so it works without headers. Body, when you're adding stuff, you could add like raw body. For instance, if I wanted to change the latitude, the format would be like this, latitude, and change it to any other value I want to. I don't know, 123.1. Okay, something like that, 1.2.1. So that's body. Again, we're not using it in this scenario because we're just pulling data. Remember, we're using get. So here, body, all of these are usually for post, or for instance, put, patch. You're probably able to use those as well. Pre-request script. This is stuff that's written beforehand and gets run before the request is sent, as it says here. So this is special scenarios or cases where you need to clean up or set some certain variables before you're making your actual request. Tests is when you want to run some tests. I haven't actually used these myself personally, but they said that they're written in JavaScript and are run after the response is received. So you could be testing for some data type or response type. Settings, again, these are similar to your authorization and extra sort of definitions. Too many to explain and to go into in this video. But yes, this is our simple sort of starting point. We've found an API that's free. We've found the endpoint on the URL, which is this one here they've given us. We've checked it on the web. Now, when you use the web, you cannot do any other requests. It's usually only get for safety reasons and security. So if we wanted to add something very tricky and it won't work through the web browser, we've got back the data using a get. Our browser does it automatically. We've also fetched it with a get with Postman behind the scenes ourselves, and we saw what that does and what it brought back. Okay, so there you have it. That's a simple sort of API or endpoint pulling. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that video and gentle introductions into APIs. So in the next video, we might look at more endpoints here. We'll see what else is offered. And yeah, the use case here obviously will be if you're building some sort of weather app or geographical app. And future videos, again, we'll go through more and more APIs. So if you liked that and enjoyed, please subscribe and thumbs up. Until next time.